to the Leo Training Podcast with Joe DeLeo. You'll hear in-depth interviews and tips from world-class athletes, coaches, and industry-leading experts to help you train smarter and improve at what you love to do. Train smarter, get stronger, move better, race faster. Here's your host, Joe DeLeo.
We're back with episode 38 of the Leo Training Podcast. And this week's guest is my good friend, Dan Mahoney. Dan was a former professional baseball player who now specializes in athletic performance training and kettlebell-focused exercise programs. Dan's clientele includes National Football League players, high school and college athletes, and those looking for a better quality of movement and life. In this interview, Dan and I sit down and we talk about his experience as a professional baseball player and incurring the Tommy John injury and having surgery, and then how he changed careers from being a professional athlete to a trainer. We also talk about his thoughts on how high school athletes should be training and what they need to focus on. This is a great episode for up-and-coming high school athletes, college athletes, and anyone looking to make sure that they have a well-rounded training program. Dan Mahoney, welcome to the Leo Training Podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. Very excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thanks, Joe. Excited to be here for the second time. Ready to get it recorded this time and get some good information out there.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we had some technical difficulties on the first go-around, so we are redoing the interview here. So for those that are not familiar with you, take a moment, introduce yourself, provide a little bit of your background, credentials, and kind of what you're currently up to.
So I currently moved from Boston to Virginia. I own my own personal training company, Mahoney Performance Training, basically just small group and some personal training. I got started through my athletic background. High school, I was a three-sport athlete, loved playing all three sports, thought I was going to be the best at all three and make it to the show and become the first three-sport professional athlete. Obviously, that didn't happen. Was lucky enough to play collegiate baseball at the University of Connecticut for 2 years before getting drafted to go play professional baseball. From there, my career was kind of short-lived. The injury bug got me. I was a Tommy John victim and never quite recovered and came back to my full potential due to some mechanical issues and some just post-surgery kind of mental block stuff. And then from there, I knew that I wanted to help people. I knew that I loved strength conditioning, and I knew that I could do both. So my first job post-baseball, after being a baseball coach for a little while, was a personal trainer. I fell in love with strength conditioning. I knew that that was my first avenue and started studying as soon as I got released for the second time from professional baseball. Knew that it was time to get a real job. So I started studying right away.
Awesome, man. Well, you're definitely making your mark so far. So really excited to have you on and share some of your experience and knowledge with the audience.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's kind of kick things off. So you kind of laid the foundation there. You talked about being drafted, playing professional baseball. So one of the initial questions I have for you is, okay, you had that devastating injury, had the Tommy John surgery, and you decide that you're going to pursue an alternative career. So as you kind of start to get into that and begin studying and you're learning about the human body, what are some of the things that kind of initially jump out at you and you're like, oh man, I wish I knew this prior to my injury?
I think just how the whole thing worked. I know that, the human body is this magical thing that knows how to fix itself and tells you when it's hurt and stuff like that. I didn't know that. I didn't listen to the warning signs when I was playing. I thought more was better. kept doing more and more and more and more and more. And always thought that going harder and trying to do things faster and stuff like that was the way that I was going to become, the next big thing in professional baseball. Once I started studying, I found out that you kind of need to recover a little bit and let your body rest and just kind of keep pushing through brick walls. But looking back on it, I wish I knew so much. From connection points to, the breaks of the arm and how weight transfer has everything to do with pitching. I knew how to throw the ball hard. I tried to strike everyone out. That was my goal. I tried to get as many outs as I could that way. And if the guy hit it over the wall, I was okay with it. I wasn't a very smart player. So if anything about studying anatomy and how the body works and stuff like that, it would be, just let the body work the way it's supposed to work and make sure that it can do that. Instead of beating it up, running it into the ground, and then trying to ask it to perform at a fairly high level.
Awesome. Are there any warning signs that kind of jump out at you? Looking back, you're like, oh man, okay, this was kind of a telltale sign, or this is a bit of a red flag, like something that you could say to the audience that they might be able to kind of pick up and think, okay, this has been happening in my own training or practice.
Yeah, I mean, for me, before I got injured, my velocity went down. So I equated velocity to performance. If my velocity was down, that means most likely my performance was down. So if performance is starting to go down, you're struggling with weights that you normally handle pretty easily or that are doable for you, that's probably a warning sign that something's going on. The body's fighting back a little bit. The body's trying to say, hey, the nervous system is going crazy, AWOL, I'm going to shut it down. I'm not going to let you do that. Same thing. My velocity went down. The start before I blew my elbow out, to me, if I was smart and I knew what I knew now, I would have probably said, hey, I either need some time off or we got to figure out what's going on. Didn't do that. The next game blew my elbow out in the first inning.
So thank you for sharing, one. Two, for those in the audience listening, make sure you're listening to your body, and it is okay to kind of speak up, let your coach or trainer know what's going on.
Yeah. And there's a difference between, you being sore and tired a little bit and big red flags and big alarms going off. There's times when I would pitch and I was sore and I was still at a high level from pitching, a lot of pitches to start before, or when I became a reliever, I threw the night before. That's okay. But if there's a big sign, like for me, the velocity went down, or for you, you may not be able to press or squat the same amount of weight that you normally do, or something else is happening, listen to it. Don't fight through the brick wall. Learn from my mistakes and probably a lot of other people's out there. Just back off a little bit to keep progressing.
Yeah, man. Rest is a good thing. Okay, so leaving baseball, getting into strength and conditioning, personal training, right? And then, like myself, you came across or found the kettlebell. So first question with that is, how did you find the kettlebell, or how did it find you? And why do you love them?
I was introduced by a physical therapist that I was working with at the time. He told me to go pick up two books, Naked Warrior, which I still have my first copy, and Enter the Kettlebell, which I also still have my first copy. And I actually flipped them both open today, which is great. The kettlebell for me is a great teaching tool. There's so many people today that don't know how to sit into their hips. They don't know how to use their hamstrings and their glutes together, and we're just such a squatty culture now, even though we can't correctly squat. We just like to put everything into our knees and our toes, which for catchers is a great thing, but that's besides the point. I love it as a teaching tool. I think it's a great conditioning tool. I think for people who are looking for something that encompasses strength, conditioning, proper movement, you're not going to find something that you can transport or that doesn't take up a lot of space in your house or apartment or anything like that. I think that they're just great for people getting started, but also for people looking to continue to move better, feel better, continue to grow in the strength world. Pressing a dumbbell or a barbell is a lot different than pressing a kettlebell. And it's just kind of that nice little weird off-centered weight shift. And, same can be said for a Turkish get-up. It's a little bit harder with a kettlebell than a dumbbell. A deadlift, I love teaching the deadlift with a kettlebell just because you don't hit your shins. And people are always complaining about, the barbell's hitting my shins, it hurts. Well, take that out with the kettlebell and you can just put it nice and safely in between your feet. So
yeah, and it's also nice because it's directly under the body center of gravity. Right. So it's, for some people, they find that much more natural.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love it. Great. So how have you folded the kettlebell kind of into your clients' programs? And I would preface this with, so the audience knows, you have some really diverse experience having worked in, kind of the gym setting, which is, on one end of the spectrum, so to speak. And then on the other end, you have spent some time in a physical therapy clinic, right? So you're kind of dealing with two very different populations in terms of where they are on the, health and performance scale, so to speak. So why is the kettlebell a good tool for individuals on polar opposites ends of the spectrum?
I think that your comment about how they're kind of on opposite ends, they are and they aren't. Most people that you work with in a personal training setting, they're looking to restore movement or restore health or restore proper patterning to get stronger. They're looking to improve. And I would argue that people on the physical therapy side are also looking to improve. Now, what the tool is doing for each of those, yes, is a little different, but I think that it just works so nicely together. You can take a person who hasn't lifted a thing, can't get up off the couch, has trouble sitting in a car for 6-8 months, teach them to just tap the top of the kettlebell, and they slowly start to feel better because they learn how to sit in their hips. And then you can take the guy who's deadlifting, who may not have the most efficient technique, teach him how to single leg deadlift or teach him how to swing, and his deadlift goes up. It kind of helps just the transfer of the energy from straight up and down to letting them sit back in their hips a little bit, feeling their hamstrings, feeling everything kind of kick in and work together, as opposed to, okay, I'm just going to rip this off the floor. Right. I've worked with some professional football players who you try and teach them how to kettlebell deadlift. It's a nightmare. It is literally a nightmare because they are so on their toes all the time. I had a linebacker, everything's downhill. So he's always on his toes, ready to go on his quads, all quad dominant. He can probably deadlift more than I can, more than most people can. But is he doing it properly? Is he, going to be able to do this for a long time? Is it affecting his performance, not being able to use everything he's got. He's only using a certain percentage. So I think that the tie-in is always going to be, yes, you're either using it for strength or for teaching, or you're using it for rehab and kind of restoration, but then they all come together at a head at a certain point, and then you can either switch them or keep going up that trail.
Awesome, man. Wonderful. Yeah, I really like the insight there between sort of two different client profiles, so to speak. So kind of circling back to sports and stuff, let's discuss a little bit the importance, especially now, probably more than ever, of being a multiple sport athlete rather than focusing and specializing in one sport, especially at a very young age.
I don't know if there are any of those out there anymore. I think they're a dead breed. No, I mean, I think I see it now. I'm still coaching baseball. I'm working with a bunch of 13 and 12-year-olds. They're trying to be the best at baseball that they can, which is great. I'm happy for them. I'm happy to help them try to get to where they want to be in that sport. My only, negative feedback for that is you're going to burn out. You're going to get tired of playing baseball. You're going to get hurt eventually because you're not doing anything else. It goes back to kind of the restoration. You're not letting those muscles in your arm relax if you're playing for 9-10 months out of the year. And then, oh, by the way, I'm going to take 2 weeks off of throw, and I got to go back and get ready for my season. Even if you're playing hockey, I used to see it with hockey all the time growing up in the Northeast. Guys are playing all the time. Eventually they're going to get hurt. Not so much in hockey because it's a physical sport anyways, and you may not have those injuries in the smaller muscles and stuff like that. But, guys burn out. They hit a peak and stuff like that. There's not enough movement patterns and doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. The body wants something new eventually, and it wants to move in all planes of motion, and it doesn't want to just stay straight ahead or doesn't just want to stay lateral. It wants to be able to move the way it was meant to move. And I think the reason why we're seeing so many injuries in young kids these days is, one, they're not moving enough. We're sitting in school all day, and I know the whole sitting thing is the new smoking and stuff like that. I don't even know if that's still around. I haven't had internet in a few months, so we're sitting a lot. Kids are playing video games and stuff like that, and then they're trying to go out and run around and be athletes. When I was a kid, it was, phone rang at about 9 a.m. during the summer, and we're out playing baseball, basketball, street hockey, some football every once in a while. We were just out doing things, and we don't do things anymore. We just do one thing.
Yeah, and then your mom's sticking her head out the door, calling you for dinner at 5-6 o'clock at night because you've been outside all day.
Yeah, and you come home smelly and sweaty, and you just sit down and eat, and you're like, hey, can I go out for another 10, 20 minutes? And she just looks at you, and she just goes, yeah, sure, whatever. Whatever you want to do.
That's right. That's exactly how mine goes, too.
I don't see that anymore. I don't see kids out, organizing themselves in small groups to be athletic, to move around, to, just have fun playing sports and playing around or, trying new things. We're so focused as parents, even though I'm not one, I deal with a bunch of them, on, okay, my kid's got to be on the best travel team. He's got to play so many games a year. He's got to have so many practices a week. We have to get him private coaching lessons. We have to do this, that, and the other thing to set him up to get this college scholarship. I mean, you look at Ohio State. I read a great article on Urban Meyer and his recruiting. Like 75% of his guys are multiple sport athletes. Something crazy like that. Don't quote me on that, but he sees the value in a guy doing something else and being an athlete.
Right.
We're no longer athletes anymore. We're just, I'm a baseball player, or you're a rower, or, I'm a football player. No, you should want to be an athlete. You should want to be athletic. You should want to be able to leave a practice and your buddies are shooting hoops and play a game of 21, or, do something outside of what you're always doing. And I don't see that. I've worked in high schools, as a specific sport coach, and also helped with some strength conditioning at some schools. And, they have sports requirements in the schools that I've worked at, and they don't want to play another sport. They're too afraid of the injury that's gonna derail their college scholarship, that they take the season off to lift and then to go do that same sport somewhere else. And then, don't you know it, a year or two down the road, they're the ones that are hurt, while the guy who played 3 months of football, 3 months of basketball, and then 3 months of lacrosse, he's running around and he's the best athlete in the whole school. And he's the one who's getting all these offers to play, one or two sports. We somehow, some way, we need to get back to move around, be an athlete, go outside. And I'm really scared that, in our technology-ridden age, that we're just not going to get back there, and this injury thing with young kids is just going to keep going. And it's sad, and it's terrible.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, it's one of the things that kind of just jolted my memory. I read an article or watched a video recently. I'll have to dig it up and find it, but it was just comparing school systems, like so U.S. and I think it was Finland.
Yeah,
but it was like 2 hours. The kids in Finland go to school for 2 hours, and they're interviewing the kids, and they interviewed the teachers, and they actually polled, I think, either 100 kids or maybe all the kids in the school to like redesign the playground outside. And the teachers were like, we want them to play. We want them to be kids. Like, they need to be running around.
Because putting a playground together has nothing to do with education, right? Putting something together with your hands and doing physical labor is out of the educational realm.
Right.
If it's not a book with a pen or a paper,
oh yeah,
that's not education.
No, because teamwork, work ethic, skill building, engineering, any of that stuff, carpentry, or construction, physical labor. Yeah, no, it's all very relevant and important. So I found that particularly interesting. But the other thing is I think they talked about sort of the benefit, like these kids were, I don't know if you can quantify happiness, but it was something like I think their test scores were as good or better, and they were in school less, right? So it's like, you don't need to have a young kid glued to their desk 8+ hours a day.
I mean, I'm working with a couple of track and field athletes down here, and it's just running camp. It's this, it's that, it's this, it's that, and it's like, just let them move around, have some fun, go be kids. Like 12 and 13 and 15-year-olds should not be thinking about the college scholarship.
Yeah, it's definitely a different time period.
They should not be focused on, am I going to make it to the pros? Now, am I saying that they shouldn't have those goals? Absolutely not. I think that that's the best thing that you can do. If you're going to do something, go all in on it. You know, go all in, have that dream, have that passion that you want to do it, but also be able to do something else. You know, and I'm not saying that you need a fallback plan or something like that, because I certainly didn't have one. I fell into this by luck. But, you know, I also knew that there was a few other things that I enjoyed instead of just, I'm going to run, or I'm going to play baseball, or I'm going to do this. It's just, we need to get out, we need to move, we need to build skills, and we just need to change.
No, I love it. Absolutely. Yeah. More play. And it's you can still get a lot of benefit without having such a rigid structure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so kind of shifting gears a little bit. One of the other topics we had down was talking a little bit about kind of corporate health and wellness and how that's kind of shifting a little bit. So you have some really excellent experience and perspective on this. So why don't you kind of provide a little bit of context to the audience, talk about one of your former roles, how we met, and also kind of tie that into how the fitness industry is changing.
Yeah. So I used to be the what was my title? Corporate Health and Wellness Manager at a small startup company in Boston before I moved. And that's actually how we met, because I had reached out to pretty much any SFG and RKC in the Boston area and surrounding areas to see if they'd be interested, because I knew that there was a need for someone to be able to teach the things that we've learned in the RKC, SFG, I'm sure, I haven't taken it, to apply them into a work setting. I brought in my own personal stash of kettlebells to the office, and it was kind of funny. I was walking through downtown Boston with 106-pound kettlebells, 32 kgs and stuff like that. And the old Italian guys were kind of looking at me funny, like, what is this guy carrying? And why is he doing it every day? But, basically my role was to come in and try and make the office place a better place. Healthier. I was there to provide a training service for those who wanted it, and basically just be a resource. Be a resource of how to maybe, someone's having some issues. Where do I go? Who do I go see? Do you have any contacts? Nutritionally was the biggest thing that I faced a challenge with, is because in their world, they're going. How do they fuel themselves to do that? And they weren't doing a very good job at all. And that was the biggest struggle for me, was to get them to see kind of the importance of it. And we made some headway with a lot of people, and the buy-in was huge. You had to get people to buy into it, but that resource was there. And basically the only thing I was there to do was to make them a healthier, happier place. Now, how I did that, I ran classes, I ran personal training sessions. I met with pretty much everyone in the company and kind of sat down and asked them, hey, what can I do as basically a personal trainer to make your life better here at work? What can I do here that may help you achieve a goal that you may have, or may help you get out of back pain because you've been sitting in a chair for 40 plus years of your life, and you're having trouble functioning. How can I help? Can I help? Can I point you in the right direction? Do I have a contact that may be of use to you? So the company brought me in. I was there part-time, which was great because I got to keep all of my existing clients, my personal clients, and my groups and stuff like that. I was able to coach. I kind of got to make my own schedule, and then I was there in the middle of the day, which as a personal trainer, that's the time you either go home and go to sleep and nap and get ready for the night, or you kind of just get stuff done. I filled those hours being there. The office was 2 blocks away from my house, which couldn't have been any more perfect for me, especially when I was carrying those kettlebells. But the company's goal was to kind of knock insurance rates down. If they can keep their employees healthier, not only are they going to be in the office being more productive for the company, but the insurance is obviously going to go down. Their retention rate and their hiring rate is going to go up. Retention rate for the company was already through the roof because it was just a cool place to work. I mean, they had a gym literally in the center of their office, and music was playing, and people were jumping around, laughing, having a great time. And then you'd have someone in like a meeting, like the wall over. So it was a kind of a fun startup dynamic, and people enjoyed it if they bought into it. And when they did buy into it, and when they did kind of see the benefit in it, they stuck around. They were there every day. They were there 5 days a week. If I didn't see them, I kind of could poke my head around the corner and say, "Hey, you're missing today. You're not going to train today," and stuff like that. So it was a fun experience, and I think if you're someone who's kind of playing with the idea of going out on your own and starting a business or trying to make more money, or just try to expand your reach of who you can help, start looking into little companies, reach out to them, try and get them to bring you in. And even if it's just to sit down and say, "Hey, I would love to come in and help your company become a happier, healthier place." I mean, it's worth a shot for some of these small companies, because we're living in this age of work, and everyone's in a bad shape, and that's costing all the companies money, and that's money that they're not going to see back. But if they can bring someone in and try to negate that and try to get the company to be a little healthier, that's going to be more productive for them and also for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love the, that kind of progressive mindset for some of the, younger startup companies, having someone such as yourself on staff, being a resource for employees. I mean, that's a amazing benefit to have. It's just really cool. This is a very fun, dynamic and environment, and you don't necessarily always have that ability. Like, oh man, it's 6:30. I'm finishing up my work day. Do I really want to drive, roll to the gym? I'm gonna have to shower afterwards, then head home, cook dinner. Whereas it's like, okay, I got an hour for my lunch break. I can get in a 30-minute, or 40-minute session, and then go eat lunch afterwards, and boom, I'm done work at 6:00, and I have the rest of the night.
So, I mean, this isn't going to transfer over to every company, but one of the things that I did was I said, listen, we should give people 45 minutes to an hour to work out, and then 45 minutes to an hour to shower, eat, get ready to kind of go on with the rest of their day, because we were meeting anywhere between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. And then sometimes I would have like a 4 to 5 p.m. Little session or something like that. And the company said, of course we should. Of course we should give them more time to be healthier, to be able to kind of relax and step away from everything that they've been doing for, X amount of hours, and then kind of settle back in for another couple hours. I think that the company that I was at was just all about their employees, and it was awesome. But they were a small company too. It was 50 people in the office, max, I think. So you don't have to go over after the Google or, all these big companies like that. Smaller companies are starting to find the resources, and they're also starting to see the benefit in having something like that within their culture and within their, brand and within, their arena, so to speak.
No, for sure. Yeah, I definitely think it's a trend that's going to continue to probably grow over the next couple of years for multiple reasons. That like employees are going to want it, and I think employers are going to be looking for ways to keep employees happy, get more productivity, and also try to save on insurance costs.
And it also saved the company a huge amount on gym memberships.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. Yeah.
A lot of companies say, okay, you can have X amount of dollars towards your gym membership. Now, if it's X amount of dollars for 50 people, it's probably a lot cheaper to just say, okay, we're just going to pay someone to come in. You can use it or not, but we're not just going to buy a gym membership for you when you're not going to use it ever.
Right.
They'd rather have those 3 or 4 people using it daily, seeing some benefit from it, than shelling out, a couple $1,000s for gym memberships that haven't seen any use. So there's a lot of ways to kind of market it and sell it to different companies. Not sell it, but kind of make them see the benefit in it, and that's definitely one of them.
No, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. So one final topic, and then we'll kind of shift into rapid fire. I remember we actually touched on this a little bit the first go around, and it just popped back into my mind. So we talked a lot about you being a baseball player, me being a rower, rotational athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Or golfers, adding in rotational training, right? Or anti-rotation training, and sort of the importance. So, I think we would both probably agree that the role of the torso is to, help create stiffness around the spine and allow, greater movement, around the shoulders and the hips. Right. Mm-hmm. So, for sports like you being a baseball player, me being a rower, we are spending a ton of time rotating asymmetrically to one side of the body. Right. So what are some things that athletes or coaches should be aware of, in those sports? And then what types of things can they kind of implement into, strength training to kind of counteract those?
I'll speak on behalf of the baseball side of that.
Sure.
I know that I did enough rotation. Every day I'd throw, hitters would hit, they'd rotate hundreds of times a day, thousands of times a week at the level that I was at. You're hitting every day, you're throwing every day, especially the infielders and the outfielders and stuff like that. They're doing both. So they don't need any more rotation to that one side. They may need to add in and incorporate some rotation to the other side to kind of balance things out rotationally, and it's probably never going to get there. And that's kind of why they're good at what they do, because that's just one of the imbalances that makes them good at hitting a baseball or rowing or something like that.
Sure.
But I'm huge on anti-rotation for my baseball players. They don't need to get stronger in rotating towards that one side. They already know how to do that. If they don't know how to do that, we may need to pick another sport, or we may need to kind of speed them up on that. But they do. So they need to stop rotating. They need to use, the other muscles that you're not using when you rotate to stop themselves, to make sure that they can stay stiff and they can stay rigid. I remember we talked about the Pallof press.
Oh yeah.
That's my bread and butter. And if you watch someone do it for the first time, you'd think that, they had never used those muscles before in their lives. They're just sitting there, they're holding, they're nice, and they're trying to stay tight. The band's kind of taking them every which way, and or whatever you're using. Anti-rotation for my baseball players is number one thing. Once they learn how to do that, they're going to stay healthier. They're going to be better rotators, in my opinion, from not rotating than they would be if they just rotated all the time. I'm not a big fan of the med ball against the wall, teach them how to rotate with a weight at their hip and use that. I don't think that translates. You're trying to use timing in a sport like baseball, and the timing and rotation, hand-eye coordination. And now you're going to throw a 25, 20-pound med ball at their hip and tell them to rotate and tell them that that's going to be the same thing. I'm not really buying it. Maybe to the other side, just to kind of try and get that imbalance taken care of. But anti-rotation, Pallof press, anything that you can do to teach them half kneeling, anything of anti-rotation, to me, for rotational athletes is more important on the strength conditioning side.
Yeah, I love it because it really exposes everything pretty quickly too. Pallof press is great, and then you could even do, hard style plank or one arm plank, right? Or one arm, one leg plank, progressions towards push up or one arm push up or one arm, one leg push up. And
if we're talking in the kettlebell world, the one arm swing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Because it just, you have to stay square to the ground, shoulders and hips.
Yep.
And it's amazing. Like, you can kind of coach or cue somebody to be like, all right, try getting set up on, XYZ side, left or right side of the body, and they'll nail it. And then they go to the other side and it's like they're flopping like a fish.
Yep.
And, they're really good. That's why they're a good rotational athlete, like you said. And then boom, they go to the other side. It's like, whew, just exposes a huge, massive imbalance.
My favorite is the half kneeling Pallof press, especially for beginners. It gives me a little chuckle because they're like, oh, that looks easy. I can just, I know what I'm doing. And then they try it on one side and they're great because you'll always start on your dominant side. Always. I'm going to rotate. I rotate that way. So yeah, I can hold it there. And then you put them on the other side, and then the eyes kind of get that deer in the headlights look of, oh man, that just got really hard.
Yep.
So,
or they start sweating. Yeah,
or they just fall over. So that's my go-to with my beginners is the half kneeling. Obviously, progressive from there. Even with older people, I'll put them on their backs and have them start there and just try to do that. And I think it's very important and it's very overlooked in a lot of strength conditioning programs.
Yeah, and it's also very safe.
It's extremely safe.
Yeah.
And I also think that can also be said for single leg training and double leg training. I remember my college days, it was all double leg. You were cleaning, you were squatting, you were deadlifting. I think we did some bench press in there, and you're never doing left and right. And so much in athletics is one leg or one side, and then transfer to the other. I mean, you look at running, it's all single leg. We're always just going one leg then the other, one leg then the other, one leg then the other. and we don't train that way. We don't train our athletes that way, and it's doing them a disservice. Plain and simple. It's not helping them get to where they need to be strength wise, but also health wise. And you keep putting someone under a bar and squatting them all the time, and then you tell them to go, cut left or right, and they're on one leg, and boom, there goes an ACL, or boom, there goes a hamstring or something like that. And it needs strength conditioning programming needs to not be so focused on the exercise, but the athlete. And that's why, I think strength and conditioning for a specific sport is a load of BS, to put it lightly. I think it's great marketing, and I think that there's definitely a lot of people who buy into it. I've seen it. But I think that unless you're taking everyone through a movement screen and doing everyone's program individually, you're doing that athlete a disservice, because little Johnny is not the same as little Timmy, and they may, want the same result, but there's two paths to get there. So I think that as a community and as a culture, we need to do a better job of focusing on that person and not, the end result. Kind of off topic. Sorry.
No, all good.
How to get that in there?
Yeah, it's all right. All good. All right, man. Rapid fire time.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. So, Dan, given your current knowledge level and experience, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself 10 years ago?
I said it earlier. Don't run through brick walls. Listen to your body. Don't be focused on harder is better. Kind of listen, back off every now and again, and the results get better.
Awesome. What's your favorite strength training exercise?
Favorite strength training exercise right now for me, I would have to say the rear foot elevated split squat, because I'm going through some knee stuff right now, and squatting is not very smart for me. It's getting a little shifty in the bottom of the squat for me. So focusing on some lighter weight, single leg stuff. And, I've tried to bring it back to the basics of some body weight stuff. I've been incorporating a lot of body weight stuff. No single arm, single leg push-ups yet for me, like yourself, but I'm trying to get there. So.
No, man, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm still working on the one arm, one leg. I can do multiple reps of the one arm push-up on both sides now, but it's tough, man. The one arm, one leg, especially with all those years rowing, it's like one side is like pretty rock solid, and then the other side. But I'm still working on getting depth, so I'm still working on getting that getting the SFB. So I'm still working towards it. Yeah, thank you. How's your training changed today compared to 10 years ago?
10 years ago, was I training? 18. Nope, wasn't training. I didn't really start training. I mean, I would go into the gym and do all the, high school bench press and stuff like that. And I squatted every once in a while, and I'd try and pick up a heavy weight off the ground every once in a while just to prove that I could do it. But I wouldn't say I really started training until I got to college, maybe my senior year in high school. So 10 years ago, I probably would have said start training. But if I could go back probably 8 years or so, I would say let's train a little smarter, not try to lift the heaviest weights all the time. I try and stay in that 70, 80% range most of the time. And then when I needed to, we could go up to the 190 to 100%. But I don't think I had any clue what I was doing 8 to 10 years ago.
All right. Awesome. Okay, you covered what injury you've had. How did it change you? We covered that earlier. Okay. Concisely, what's one thing high school athletes should be doing more of to complement their training and their health?
One thing?
Yep.
Play another sport.
There you go. I was pretty sure that's what you were going to say.
Yeah.
What's your best tip to improve recovery after a training session?
After a training session, eat well, hydrate, basics. We're really bad at basics. Everyone.
Everybody wants the magic pill.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's out there. We found it, right? Did you find it?
Oh, yeah.
I haven't found it yet. So I'm still looking, but basics. If we could just do the basics a lot better. Like, hey, maybe sleep a lot. Maybe we should drink a lot of water. Maybe we shouldn't go out to eat at 11 o'clock at night and get in the dollar menu line and order a bunch of stuff. I know this is brain busting stuff, but if we could just do the basics better and we could actually recover, and then, hey, maybe in training, not try to kill ourselves. Maybe try and leave a little in the tank so that we feel better, or just the same, if not better, as when we walked in.
Yeah,
I think we'd be able to recover a little bit better.
Awesome. All right, what's your favorite meal?
Ooh, it would have to be steak, red wine, garlic mashed potatoes, and something green.
Oh man, dude, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, and a lot of red wine too.
There you go. All right, final question. What's one book everyone should read?
Ooh, change this one on me. Training book or just book in general?
Book in general.
The Power of Now.
Power of Now. All right.
I think that The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is something that no matter what you're doing, you could probably benefit from. Read it. I'm not gonna give anything away, but It's basically about just being in the moment and learning how to do that.
Excellent. All right, man. Well, that is a wrap. So, you got anything else to add before we wrap this one up and I give you a proper goodbye?
Yeah. No. If you're in Northern Virginia, give me a buzz. Give me a shout. I'm located in Ashburn, Virginia. I'm still getting used to the area out here, so I'd love to meet some people. I got a bunch of people now, but more the merrier. MahoneyPerformanceTraining.com. And if you want to email me directly, it's danm17@gmail.com. You'll get right to my phone.
Nice. Awesome. I will definitely make sure to include the links for the website and stuff on the show notes.
Perfect.
Awesome, man. Well, hang on the line. Let me give you a proper goodbye, and we will wrap this one up.
You got it.
Thanks for tuning in and listening to this episode of the Leo Training Podcast. If you enjoyed the content, I would greatly appreciate it if you head on over to iTunes and drop in a 5-star review. Or take a moment of your time and please share it on your favorite social media network such as Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Thanks for tuning in and listening.
Thanks for listening to the Leo Training Podcast. Subscribe and get even more expert training tips at www.leotraining.io.